CNN hosted one of only two debates between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, scheduled to take place before voters take to the polls this fall. It was the earliest presidential debate in history, taking place before either party's national convention and more than 4 months before Election Day. It was also the first debate in over 40 years unsanctioned by the nonpartisan nonprofit Commission on Presidential Debates. It was the Joe Biden campaign that sought to debate Donald Trump, and yet the overwhelming impression by pundits following the event was that Trump had emerged the winner, despite fact checkers pointing to an unprecedented number of lies in the former president's responses. President Biden at times seemed incoherent, distracted, and slow to respond, missing several opportunities to land hits on Trump's record or vast number of legal cases currently navigating the courts. Will either party replace their nominee at convention? Will voters look past debate gaffes and focus on policy? And what were student responses to Biden versus Trump? We'll talk about that and more here on Real Talk. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Grason Holt. Sitting alongside me is political reporter Jace Hodge and political science major Levi Ault. Today we're going to be getting into the debate from last night. Let's just kind of get into it, guys. What are our opinions?
I mean, just first thoughts, it was certainly a debate. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, Joe Biden started off rough. Obviously, he kind of got into the swing of things as he went along. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. And Levi, I know you know a lot more than I do. So what were your first thoughts?
This was definitely a rough debate for Joe Biden. He started off the debate very slowly. He had a couple of gaps here and there, but he did slowly start to pick up speed. But at the very end, he started to flamble a little bit. There were a couple really bad moments for the Biden campaign that they're trying to run and spin after the debate. But overall, this was not a good performance by Joe Biden. He really needed to come into this debate strong and assure the Democratic Party and his supporters that he is competent, that he is confident, and that he can lead them into this November election. And he was not able to do that tonight. And looking forward, Democrats are going to have to answer some very tough questions in the coming weeks and months regarding Biden's administration and his campaign.
Yeah. So we are actually going to go ahead and send it over to a video from the debate. So go ahead and take a look at this.
A rancorous rematch playing out on the debate stage Thursday night.
It's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump battling over critical issues including inflation, foreign policy, abortion, and immigration.
When he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated.
We had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history.
The clash also turned personal as each looked to define the other as unfit for office.
You're destroying our country.
You're a whiner. When you lost the first time.
Over the course of the debate, Trump repeated his frequent election denialism and hedged on whether he would accept the results of the election.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous.
While Biden's halting speech and inability to clearly communicate his vision raised concern over his biggest vulnerability, his age. Though he is drawing sharp criticism from across the political spectrum, Vice President Kamala Harris came to the president's defense.
Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people.
The candidates are slated to meet on the debate stage again in September, this time as their official party nominees.
So after watching the clip from the debate last night, we obviously see that Kamala Harris said that it started off slow for President Biden. We can see that. But Trump and Biden were both just going at each other in, a tough way. And, we're questioning Biden's age. We're questioning Trump saying that, the last election was a failure and that it was a fraud. What are some of our opinions on this?
So right off the bat, I think it's important to highlight that tonight was really a night that Joe Biden needed to show that he can effectively articulate his ability to counter Trump and to counter Trump's talking points and his facts and his lies. And Biden was unable to effectively articulate his vision for America, at least effectively. There was an exit poll last night after the CNN debate that 67% of Americans thought that Donald Trump had won that debate. This is compared to the first debate last time, where 60% of viewers thought Joe Biden won the debate, compared to 28% Trump. So there is definitely, and one of the questions that was asked of Kamala Harris after the debate was, do you think that Joe Biden, that this is the same man that Kamala Harris debated back in 2020? And she was unable to answer that question. This is clearly a campaign that is trying to mitigate crisis and mitigate the performance of their nominee. And we see that through Biden's inability to effectively tackle issues like with Trump claiming that the election was a fraud and so on. And I think it's going to be very damning for Democrats seeing that. It put them into a panic.
Yeah. I will ask, during this, since the last election we had Joe Biden, we had Donald Trump, do you think that American people are kind of just settling right now for the lesser evil because things haven't gone their way for the past 4 years and this is the only option we have?
Oh, absolutely. It's important to frame this conversation. A vote for Joe Biden is not a vote for Joe Biden. If Joe Biden will become the Democrats' nominee, people, more likely than not, a voter who goes into the voter booth is not casting their ballot for Joe Biden. They're casting their ballot against Donald Trump. And it's clear, it's been on clear display for the past 4 years that Joe Biden, he is clearly in a state where he isn't on the right footing. He misspeaks constantly. He doesn't ensure confidence in the American public. But with all that being said, with all that contextualized, people still think that will be better than a Trump presidency. Trump, his goal tonight was to come into the debate, appear more moderate, appeal to those independent voters, and I think for the most part, he did an okay job at that. He appealed to voters by, saying, by not going so hardline on abortion, by saying things like, I believe in exceptions to the rule. Like Reagan before him, I believe in exceptions to rape and to incest and to the mother's life. And that'll go a long way with voters who fear Trump passing a national abortion ban or other abortion-esque policies. And Joe Biden, his goal was to appear strong, and that was not on display. But you're absolutely right in framing the conversation of these two candidates are disliked very much by the public at large, but they're going to dislike one candidate more than the other, and that will dictate who wins this election.
Yes. Thank you so much. Jace, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so like you said, I think Trump did what he had to do in the debate. Biden obviously didn't appear like they wanted him to, and that played into Trump's hand 100%. But looking at the debate as a whole, I think it was more of them trying to decide who was worse than it was trying to prove why they are the better candidate for the people. It was more of, taking shots at one another. They even went to golf at one point because why not, They're just trying to one-up each other, trying to prove who's worse, rather than trying to prove why they are the better candidate for the people to vote for.
No, that's a good, I love that observation.
So now we are going to go ahead and take a look. Like I was saying before, President Biden was off to kind of a slow start last night, ended up finishing strong, as Kamala Harris would say. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at her interview real quick.
Some within your own party are wondering if President Biden should even step aside. What do you say to that?
Listen, first of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people, on substance, on policy, on performance. Joe Biden is extraordinarily strong. And
but I'm sorry,
that
on
cannot
substance
be
and
debated.
policy and performance tonight, the president's performance tonight clearly was disappointing for his supporters. CNN is reporting Democratic lawmakers watching the debate were worried about the president's performance. One said it was a disaster. Another called it a train wreck. Those are Democrats especially worried that Biden did not punch back on Trump's lies.
Listen, people can debate on style points, but ultimately this election and who is the president of the United States has to be about substance. And the contrast is clear. Look at what happened during the course of the debate. Donald Trump lied over and over and over again, as he is wont to do. He would not disavow what happened on January 6th. He would not give a clear answer on whether he would stand by the election results this November. He went back and forth about where he stands on one of the most critical issues of freedom in America, which is the right of a woman to make decisions about their own body. He has been completely ambiguous and all over the place about where he stands on that issue, despite the fact that he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and that's exactly what they did. And just 3 years ago, we commemorated the 2-year anniversary of Dobbs, wherein women across our country have been denied emergency health care.
So coming out of that clip, I want to go ahead and send it over to Jace. So we talked about, policy over performance. That was Kamala's main focus. And as a regular, just civilian viewer, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, Kamala Harris was saying how style points don't really matter. It's more substance. But I think they do matter a lot. You look at Joe Biden, and it was a split screen the whole time, and you could tell there's times he just looked shocked and confused, and that's not what the American people want to see. They want to see a president that's confident in what they're saying, that knows what they're talking about, and can prove that they're the right candidate for them to vote for. And Joe Biden, in my opinion, did not prove that because he looked shocked, confused, and was stumbling over himself multiple times. Trump was more confident, he was more well-spoken, and I think that's why Trump won this debate.
I absolutely agree with you. I have a lot of respect for the vice president, but I think she is dead wrong when it comes to this being about style points and about the former president having it down when it comes to substance. I think that for the president to be effective, you must be able to articulate effectively your position. And Joe Biden was not able to do that. And this debate is in a unique position because, listen, most debates, they don't matter. The widespread opinion amongst political scientists is that debates really don't have an impact on the election. But this debate, I feel as if it's uniquely suited, tailored for Joe Biden to be able to really, it's a swim or drown moment for Joe Biden tonight was in a lot of ways. And because this debate gave Joe Biden a platform to be able to articulate himself and to instill confidence again into his presidency and into his administration. And for most average viewers, this is the most politics they're going to get these 2 debates of this election cycle, and to see and it also doesn't hurt Joe. It also hurts Joe Biden that he doesn't do a lot of press conferences. He's in the closet a lot. He's not doing a whole bunch of stuff. He's not talking. And so when Joe Biden does come out and talk, and this is the performance that he gives, it's shocking and scary to a lot of Americans who saw this debate tonight and were scared and thought that there was a man up on stage who really doesn't know what he's doing. And it's a scary thought. And a lot of Americans, a lot of Democrats, as the clip highlighted, a lot of Democrats were watching that debate in a panic, thinking, what are we going to do with our nominee?
And it's, what do you think they're going to do? Like you said, they're worried about Biden's performance and how he was, getting across his points. So what is the plan for the Democrats now?
So the only way that Joe Biden will be taken off the ballot for this November is if he steps down voluntarily. There is not a mechanism right now in our election process for the Democratic Party to force Joe Biden to step down. Now, if Joe Biden does step down because of how much panic has been in the fallout of this election, what will happen is there'll be an open convention, and then it'll open the floor for any Democrat to try to seize the nomination. And that means delegates from across the nation, super delegates, will be able to cast their ballot for people like Gavin Newsom, Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or Vice President Kamala Harris.
And this isn't just a conversation coming out of nowhere when we talk about President Joe Biden stepping down or leaving the election. A lot of people are talking about this. It's all over every social media platform that I have seen this morning. Do you think that there is a likely chance that could possibly happen?
It's definitely a non-zero. I don't think it's likely, because we have seen previously how bad open conventions can go, especially with how salient issues like Palestine and other issues like abortion are so prominent in the Democratic Party right now, and more importantly, the divisions within the Democratic Party between the moderate wing and the progressive wings of the party, that if we did have an open convention at this point without any Democratic oversight really to be had, that it could facilitate and be the catalyst for a more destructive candidate to be like in 1968 with Humphrey being the nominee and there being riots on the streets and ultimately led to Humphrey's defeat in the November election. So at this point, Democrats are really trying to strategize, I think, do Democrats have a higher chance of winning the November election if Joe Biden remains on the ticket or if he is kicked off from the ticket? This is the question on Democrats' minds this morning. And whatever conclusion they come to, I think will definitely affect how Joe Biden, whether or not he will remain the nominee or not. But that's definitely a discussion for himself and for the First Lady Jill Biden to be had, because Joe Biden is a very proud individual, and he has stated time and time again, if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, he will go up against him again. So tonight, with all the backlash coming from Democrats, from elected Democrats, and here's the reason why Democrats are so concerned about this, is because these down-the-ballot races, like gubernatorial races, even local municipality races, they're worried that if Joe Biden is at the top of the ticket, that it's going to hurt their chances of winning their own elections. And this is a great way to affect change, is when people's skin are on the lines, when their lives, when their livelihoods, when their career, when they see that Joe Biden, their nominee, is floundering on the podium and unable to effectively formulate a response. They're sitting there thinking, "Oh my gosh, if I'm going to lose my election bid because I'm going to be sharing the ticket with Joe Biden." And this may really cause the Democratic establishment to turn against Joe Biden. And I was personally shocked how much the media almost flipped, because it was widely considered that no matter how Joe Biden performed tonight, that the media was going to spin it positively no matter what. So the fact that Joe Biden wasn't even able to secure his safe, positive media is very alarming for his campaign. His campaign is going to go in full crisis mode at this point.
And then turning and looking at Trump, we saw in the clip they mentioned about Trump's lies. I mean, there was a good number of them. January 6th, the COVID pandemic. What is your thoughts on that and how Biden kind of responded to those?
Yeah, again, ineffective. He was ineffective at being able to stab back at those lies and to present an alternative to those lies. There was an op-ed written by Secretary Clinton, former nominee against Donald Trump in 2016, and I think she gave some ill-advised points to Joe Biden, saying that he shouldn't even engage with the lies, that he should just be, essentially, grazed over, and that you can't even engage with it. But that's the way that we can. But Joe Biden not engaging with the lies, at least to the point that he should have, really reflected in his inability to be an articulator and an orator. Because when you think about it, in a lot of ways, the president is the representative of America and America at large. And for him, if he can't, debate Donald Trump, how is he supposed to go to foreign nations and foreign countries and being able to effectively articulate against somebody like Putin or even our allies, our enemies with Kim Jong-un? It breeds this type of ill confidence, breeds and cultivates insecurity with our allies here domestically, and Democrats and Republicans, they see that, and this could signal to world leaders that maybe Joe Biden isn't as strong and the American president is weak, and that is a message that was sent.
I do believe, just as a civilian also watching it, that this, was the main message being sent. But I do kind of want to point out, before we look at all these headlines of, what people are saying, this was the earliest primary we have ever had.
Yes.
So do you personally believe that this was held early in case something like this happened and in case someone did need to be replaced?
Absolutely. Your intuition serves you well. That is absolutely why they did this. There's two ways of thinking of this. One, the reason why this debate was held so early is because in case something like this happened, in case Joe Biden came out and it was a wash, he wasn't able to, he performed ill, that his campaign had time between now and November to reconstruct his image and to mitigate some of the concerns that would be levied against him, and to try to hopefully allow people to forget this performance by the time they go into the ballot box this November. Another reason is because if something like this did happen, it could give Democrats a chance to maybe knock him off the ballot. Now, that's all speculative thinking, and it's a theory, but because of how his performance was perceived by Democrats, how illy it was perceived by them, by elected Democrats and high-ranking members of his party, that it gives them a chance before the convention to get a new nominee in. Because at this time in the process in 2008, we didn't know who the nominee was going to be for Democrats between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So there is still time to change the process and to get a new nominee in office. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And Jace, I would like to ask, through your perspective, did you have anything else to add to this? I mean,
honestly, as the debate as a whole, I feel like it didn't really move the needle per se. I mean, there wasn't really enough, substance in the debate that really would have changed any opinions politics-wise. It was more of both Trump and Biden trying to shoot each other down, trying to, kind of hobble one another heading into the second debate in September. I mean, obviously there's a second debate, so how can Biden bounce back off of this one?
Yeah, and well, that's what the Biden campaign will be hoping, that in the next in the next debate, that he'll be able to perform better. That's why Joe Biden, there's no doubt in my mind that he's really going to push to have another debate, and maybe even another debate after that, because after this performance last night, he needs another chance to redeem himself. And going back to another point, I really agree with you that this really isn't going to change the needle. This debate will not change anyone's minds over these candidates, but what it will do is instill this confidence among Democrats, and that will affect voter turnout. People will say, oh my gosh, it'll affect enthusiasm for Democrats about going out and voting for Joe Biden. People would rather stay home maybe because they don't feel excited about his campaign, younger people in particular. I don't think this debate changed anyone's views or that any of these candidates gained votes, but it definitely, I think, had a possibility of Joe Biden losing votes. Mm-hmm. And in an election so close as this one, Joe Biden cannot afford to lose any votes. And the way the math works is, if Joe Biden wants to win, he has to win more voters than he did in 2020. And I don't see that happening with this current trajectory. He is not as strong as a candidate as he was in 2020. His administration and his campaign is not as effective as it was in 2020. His mind and body does not seem as it was 4 years ago, and it's going to be a real tough path to victory for Joe Biden in this current state. But you're absolutely right. I don't think it will change the needle for either candidate, but it could affect who will vote for these candidates. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much. And I wanted to go ahead and thank Jace for joining us today. When we come back, I'm going to be here with Levi Ault, political science major, as we discuss some more of these headlines that we're seeing.
How about those Nuggets this year, Jace? It sounds like a chip to me.
They ain't going back to back. Ain't no one getting past Boston. They got a super team, man.
All right, Jace, check up. This is Last Call. Jace and I head-to-head on football, baseball, basketball, and everything UND.
Mondays, 6 p.m. UND TV on YouTube and Xfinity Stream Channel 1096.
I've spent a lot of time with him. I know Joe Biden. I know what he's accomplished in the last 3.5 years. I know what he's capable of, and I know his vision, and I have no trepidation. To me, that was just daylight and darkness. I'm a little old-fashioned. I care about substance. I care about policy. I care about facts. I care about people being accountable. to their lies. What I saw tonight was Donald Trump weakness masquerading as strength. A guy who was incapable, as the senator said, answering any question directly, obfuscating, pointing fingers, and more important than anything else, disgusted by the fact that I heard ex-President of the United States talk down the American economy, talk down the United States of America to the degree he did tonight.
Sir, what about the president's
as it relates to the president on the substance, on the compare and contrast and economic record, where just in the last 3.5 years, that 15.6 million jobs represents 8 times more jobs in the last 3 Republican presidents combined. A 3% GDP growth, which is envy of the world, where we're seeing inflation tamed down 2/3, an economic policy and a vision for the future to bring back American manufacturing. I was very proud of the president tonight. So from my humble perspective, this is not about style. This is about delivering results for the American people. And tonight, I think Joe Biden not only asserted himself, he reminded people of his accomplishments and his vision for the future.
Does that give you pause?
Well, first of all, some of those things, like the last one he talked about was the VA choice. The VA choice program has actually not been fully implemented. It's been undermined in its implementation. So I think what Donald Trump is saying is that basically this was in place, it was expanded, the Biden administration has actually slowed it down and impeded its implementation. I don't remember all 30 of them he went through, and obviously we don't have to go through the Biden ones either. Suffice it to say that I think tonight, we all are in politics. I'm in office, you guys cover it. But there are millions of people watching who basically want to ask themselves, were we better off under Trump or were we better off under Biden? Did I have more money in my pocket? Was the world safer and more secure? Was the country safer and more secure? And I just think more and more Americans are concluding that they were better off in the 4 years Trump was president than in the 3.5 years that Biden has been president. And I think that's the core issue of this campaign that's going to decide it.
Even with COVID?
I mean,
it was bad.
Yeah, COVID was bad, but Trump didn't create COVID. COVID impacted the entire planet.
But that was how people felt. That was what they lived through.
Sure, but I mean, what does Trump have to do with COVID? He didn't invite. And on the contrary, I vividly recall when he implemented the travel ban from China. I want to say January, maybe February of that year. It was Nancy Pelosi and people like that were criticizing. I think Biden called him a xenophobe for the China ban. We wish we would have done it earlier in hindsight. He invested a massive amount of money, which we had to do, in Operation Warp Speed, that came up with not 1 but 3 vaccines. So if you think about our efforts and the Patient Protection Program, which is bipartisan, but his administration was a key part of, saved Main Street America when everything was being shut down, including states that were shut down for a year. So even those things he doesn't get enough credit for. But obviously COVID was an anomaly in human history, something that happens once every 100 years and hopefully never happens again. But overall, people have recollections of those years in which they had more money in their pocket. That's a fact.
Coming back from those clips, we just took a look at Newsom and Rubio, who are both obviously, pledging their allegiances to both of these nominees. But I think when we look at it and boil it down, do you think, because I personally do, that either one of Rubio or Newsom speaking is better than who we have up on that presidential debate?
Absolutely agree. Both of these candidates both of these politicians who came to advocate for their nominee seemed like they had a better pulse on the American public than their nominees. Especially, it was even more evident with Gavin Newsom. He came off very confident, very strong, able to effectively articulate and orate his responses in a clear manner, which is so important for the executor of our nation. And Newsom really came off presidential. If you remember, or if you recall, there was kind of a debate between Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom earlier this year. And people were saying that seemed like that was the true presidential debate, even though Ron DeSantis didn't win his nomination, and Newsom obviously just remained a governor. But it's clear that if Biden was taken off the ticket, either through his own will or forced out, Gavin Newsom would definitely be at the top of the conversation to replace him. And with Marco Rubio, there were all of the Trump surrogates there after the debate last night were potential vice president picks for Donald Trump. It was almost an audition for who could be the best, who can defend me the most. And Rubio, I think, did an effective job at being able to elude people away from Trump's lies and to try to paint with a broad brush saying, oh yeah, I don't think Trump's lied, all that. This is what he meant to say. Trump clearly has a lying problem, so it was good to see Marco Rubio at least somewhat trying to push back on that. And with Newsom, I definitely disagree with him, though, that it's not just about style. It's not just about, it's all about substance. I might be old-fashioned, it's all about substance, but even in the Reagan and in the Carter era, it matters how you're able to effectively communicate with the American public. That is almost your sole job as the party leader and as the leader of America abroad. You need to be able to talk and to be able to be a good orator and to talk with one another and to be able to forge alliances and to be a strong leader. But to be a strong leader, you have to be able, in today's day and age, to be a strong talker. And for Gavin Newsom to say that this election and this debate wasn't about that at all is simply wrong. With that train of thought, the Democrats will lose this election.
And I completely agree with you, and I feel like as the American people, we want to see someone who represents us, and we just haven't seen that yet. Now, you see it all over the headline. That's what everyone's talking about. So, we're going to have to see if Joe Biden would end up getting replaced, how the second debate is going to go. But before we end out our show today, I do want to ask you, what are some of the disappointments, from both sides that you saw coming out of this debate? I know we've talked about some of them, but I'm sure that there are more. And how do you believe, the next debate is going to go? What do you think Trump needs to do and Biden needs to do?
So I was disappointed a lot in Joe Biden. There were many opportunities that Trump opened himself up to being attacked, and there were a lot of easy layups that Biden should have been able to capitalize on, but he just simply wasn't able to. And along that train of thought, Biden opened himself up many times during the debate, where I was literally sitting in my, watching the debate with my father, and hearing Biden say something about abortion, about 3 trimesters, and it was like, oh my gosh, he was inviting an attack from Donald Trump. So I would love to see either, if Biden can improve upon his performance, I would say being able to capitalize more on the gaps left by Trump. And Trump, I was a little bit disappointed in his even ability to capitalize on some of the gaps left by Joe Biden. But overall, though, I think Trump did what he needed to do. He didn't come off crazy. He didn't come off too delusional. Because all Trump really needs to do is hold out for this. If he doesn't cause a bunch of controversy, then that'll be the best thing he can do at this point. The last thing he needs to do is to come off as deranged or crazy, or as a convicted felon, or someone who's going to bring a lot of chaos back to America. People, they're in a lot of stress right now. Their pocketbooks are lower than they were 4 years ago. Not enough money to go around. And if they see Trump as an alternative to Joe Biden, they will vote for Joe Biden and for a Democrat even if they may think their pocketbooks may hurt because of it, because they will not want Donald Trump back in the Oval Office to cause chaos. But I think going forward, I think both campaigns, especially the Biden campaign, need to evaluate themselves, and the Democratic Party and establishment out wide need to take a serious look in the mirror and ask themselves, is this the candidate that they want to put forward? If they truly believe that democracy is on the line, that this election is the most important election of our lifetime, do they want Joe Biden being at the top of the ticket? Do they trust Joe Biden being their nominee? And for a lot of Democrats, I don't think they do. And so they're going to go into these coming weeks and coming days, and they're going to have to make a tough decision, and Joe Biden is going to have to make a tough decision whether or not he will remain the candidate. And if he does, I think it could spell chaos in the November election.
Yes, and obviously we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but here on Unity TV News, we'll always keep you updated.
You count on it.
You count on it. I believe that is all the time that we have for today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We will see Levi back here, but that's all the time we have. We were just ending out the show, but we have breaking news. The Supreme Court has just this moment released their decision saying prosecutors improperly charged hundreds of January 6th rioters. So this just came out as we're sitting here talking. This is a huge advantage for Trump, and how I want to see your opinion on, how the Republican Party is going to spin this.
Yeah, thank you. Both parties are going to absolutely spin this as both will claim that this is that justice is being weaponized. For Democrats, they will try to say that this rogue, ultra-conservative, far-right Supreme Court is allowing Donald Trump and his insurrectionists off the hook, essentially allowing and demonstrating that this type of activity, storming the Capitol, is okay and that it doesn't merit any consequences. For Donald Trump, he will say that SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, being the highest court in the land, has remedied and has illustrated that these prosecutors, local DC prosecutors and prosecutors around the country, are attempting to undermine the 2024 election by deeming him and his followers as insurrectionists, as crazy, as dangerous, and as violent. And Democrats are going to have to spin this, and I think they can successfully spin it, that this is yet again an example of a far-right Supreme Court that is allowing Donald Trump to get off scot-free of justice. But it will definitely help Donald Trump at least point to or allude to that there may be some coercion or in collusion with prosecutors and stuff around the country. If anything, it's going to be good meat for his base to throw and say, hey everybody, my supporters, look, the Supreme Court just said that a bunch of these cases are being thrown out. Look, this must be, see for yourselves. If the highest court in our country is saying that 27 of these criminals, former criminals, were wrongfully charged, I wonder how many other convictions were wrongfully charged. So, if anything, it's just going to sow more distrust in the system and in our institutions like the Supreme Court, and that's why it's very important for Democrats for them to win this upcoming election, and they can use this as saying, we can't have another 4 years of Donald Trump appointing Supreme Court justices, or else we'll have more decisions like these to come out.
Yes. And I want to just thank you again so much here with the breaking news as well. You have been a very big help. We will see Levi back on here hopefully soon, but that is all the time that we have today. So thank you. Tune in if you would like more updates on breaking news. Follow us at UIndy. I'm Grason Holt, and you've been watching Real Talk. Have a good night.